Hello, Patreon supporters. Thanks for joining us for the spoiler talk for the book Alice Isn't Dead by author Joseph Fink.
Let's talk about hoodies. The oracles. So if anybody who just tuned in listens, you're like, what did you fucking say oracles? Turns out that not only do we get the surprise that Bay and Creek and the Thistlemen are working together. I don't know if together is the right word. I see it feels like they coexist.
Same entity. Yeah.
But so let me ask you a question. They only coexist to get government money, right? I mean,
well, so I guess here's the way that I would. It all hinges to me on the the officer that changes her name a lot, Officer Foot, Officer Road, whatever. That woman is like. The way I interpreted it, and maybe you'll take it differently, is that woman is the kind of physical manifestation of all the bad stuff in the world, like all the bad behaviors of people, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so what she's doing is she's going around kind of poking the people that she thinks are already bad to like do the bad stuff more until they become like these weird thistlemen. Are you with me so far on that?
Yes, more or less, yeah. Yep.
More or less. So she's like the more supernatural, spiritual, ancient, old ones kind of a manifestation of the stuff, and then she's basically creating her minions to do her bidding. Whereas Bay and Creek is like the business side. Like Bay and Creek exists to build a platform on which the Thistle side of things can just run amok. Is that's my interpretation of it.
Yeah, I got it. I got it a little different.
Okay.
I felt like Bay and Creek was funded to help keep the Thistlemen off the radar a little bit. Like, I don't know, I don't want to say to support them, but like we know this is a thing. How do we keep this thing quiet? So we're going to put together an organization that helps keep it under wraps. Now, in some cases, if they go off the grid and they go on and they try to attack someone like they do with Keisha in the beginning and Bay and Creek save her, not only because of Alice, I think that was part of their job to keep them from just really like going off the rails, keeping them quiet. I mean, they have an Air Force base as their hometown. So I feel like the government knows they exist. And they go, all right, listen, you guys can be over here. And yeah, we know you got to kill people sometime, and that's fine. But let's not turn this into like a big thing.
Gotcha.
So I felt like Bay and Creek was a checks and balances against the Thistlemen.
Okay, but not like a... Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense, kind of. Yeah, I like what you're saying. I'll go with that.
But then you have the Oracles, and they are the anti-Thistlemen. Now, there's some things I really liked about the Oracles. I am fascinated with a creature that understands and doesn't live linearly.
Right.
So where the oracles essentially live at all periods during their life at the same time. So we get to, well, this is spoiler talk. So when Sylvia becomes an oracle, we find out that the oracles that, you know, when she's talking to Keisha, she already knows when she's going to die.
Yep.
She knows what fight she has on the way, but she's also constantly living like her first moment of meeting Keisha and being on the road with Keisha, and they break in the police station together, you know, so it was very touching.
And her mom dying.
And her, well, yeah, but yeah, it was very touching, you know, for the Elsie. But yeah, she lives through the constant state of her entire life, both as a human and then as an oracle. And I thought, like, this is a really cool character. It's not really original. I mean, I've seen something similar to this, but I think that the oracles after their oracles are done pretty well. My issues come with the oracles and the Thistlemen before they become Thistlemen, and should we go into this now?
I mean, I thought we were going to talk about hoodies, but yeah, you might as well.
Sure. Oh, no, that's right. No, let's talk about the hoodies. Yes, sorry, hoodies took me into oracles. Tell me about, so all the oracles wear hoodies, which I found to be kind of silly, to be quite honest. If I was going to say weird, but not weird, like that's cool. They have a uniform. Just hoodies seem to be a terrible, like, uniform. Yeah.
Well, I got two thoughts on that. The first thought is, the way that their faces are described, from what I recall, to me, amounted to like you can see their faces throughout their life, kind of, in a way. Like their face isn't like a set thing. It's like all their faces for whenever. So it's like an unsettling kind of weird thing to look at. The hoodie would be a practical way to make it so that people who interact with them don't see that and freak out, you know?
Oh, I guess if you think about it as so it would be like a cloak and cowl, like if this was in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Like you see like those monks wear where you can't really see their face. I guess that would be the only way to do that without it making them wear a mask or something. I guess that makes sense.
Now, in pop culture, if you watched the Kevin Smith movie Dogma, all the angels wear hoodies.
I didn't. I have seen Dogma, and I guess I didn't remember or think about that.
Didn't catch that, eh? So honestly, I almost want to Google right now angels wearing hoodies, because I think that there's something bigger to that, and it sounds awfully stupid.
That sounds like a good investment of our time.
Yeah, this isn't going anywhere. It's a bunch of hoodie. It's weird because it's a bunch of articles about Drake wearing a Hell's Angel hoodie. This is not what... All right. This didn't get me to where I wanted to go. But apparently at one point Drake was wearing a Hell's Angels something. I don't know. I know the Kevin Smith one, but I feel like there was somewhere else, and it might have been inspired by his thing, where angels wore hoodies and that was like your visual representation of, oh, this is an angel, and that's why, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I could be wrong.
I do want to say that I have nothing against hoodies, but it did occur to me that I don't know that I've ever worn the hood of a hoodie on my head. And I know you do. You, present and future, you both.
I was about to say, you might have to think a little bit more about the divine nature of future Rob now.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I mean, I own a couple of hoodies, but I don't think I've ever actually put the hood on.
I only really do in the rain.
Yeah. Which is weird. I wonder what percentage of people wear hoodies but never wear the hood. It's probably a high percentage of people.
Pretty high, yeah.
Which then it's weird because you could just get a sweatshirt without the hood. Because what happens with a hoodie is then it's tough to put on a jacket because either you go hunchback,
yeah, or you have
do
to
the
flip
weird
the
thing
hood
where
out.
you try to pull it out. Yeah, and then it's worse because if you're wearing like a winter jacket that has its own hood, then you've got like a double hood thing happening.
Yeah. Wait. Yeah. I don't have a winter jacket that's got an. Oh, I know what you're saying though. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I have like a, I don't know, I guess parka is probably the right term. Like my winter coat is got a hood and, it's like a little puffy Michelin Man type jacket.
Either way, the oracles all wear hoodies. And it's not like they just decided somewhere along the way, oh, you know what? I think that we all, there
was a sale at Old Navy.
Right. Exactly.
Hoodies, yeah.
Or like they picked up, oh, I guess as an oracle, I need to hide my face, and the best way to do it is a hoodie. When you become an oracle, you like transform into a hoodie wearing being. Like the hoodie is part of your new like life.
Yeah.
So that's the that's the funny part is like they didn't really have a choice. They just all got hoodies when they became an oracle.
Yeah, the oracles have some Thistlemen have some supernatural strength, but it really seems like Thistlemen are like more like really strong and maybe have like a suggestive ability.
Powerful enough to overcome the weak, I think.
Yeah. The oracles, motherfucking ninjas, though, that can tear through like, 24 Thistlemen like they're nothing.
Yep.
I know we've gone really far away from Keisha getting in her truck to look for her lost wife as we're discussing oracles and hoodies and Thistlemen. Here's my issue. My issue is, look, I'm completely drawn into the story even after having read it, just reading the synopsis or listening to you read the synopsis again. The cop-out for me kind of came towards the end in the reveal about the Thistlemen and the oracles. And I don't know how deep a conversation we're going to, because Rob and I had this conversation offline already prior to. But Fink's decision to explain the existence of the Thistlemen and the oracles stems from, and I'm going to try to do this as succinctly as possible, really racist people turn into thistlemen that live forever, or at least, I mean, like decades past their normal lifespan. I don't know if they live forever. And the oracles was a little less clear, I think, on who they are, but they're just like really good people. Was I missing something there?
I mean, I could expand on that a little bit.
Sure, by all means.
So the example of the genesis of one of the thistlemen that we saw was someone who is a big white supremacist. Mm-hmm. But I think that is like, I interpreted it as people who have negative, hateful qualities, mm-hmm. not necessarily just racists.
That you're right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you're right, because we only see the transformation of one, and his is clearly just heavily racist.
Yeah, and it's the hate of his racism that causes him to degenerate into something less than human, or whatever you want to say, more than human. I don't know.
Yeah.
As far as the oracles, I'm a little fuzzy on that one, because the only example we see of a transformation of an oracle is Sylvia, and Sylvia really is just trying to fight the darkness, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think there's a little more to Sylvia. Sylvia is a little bit of I don't know, like modern day hippie. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but she's like built this network of people that just like want to help her because she's a nice person. I mean, so I did get like this. I don't know. I've known some people in my life that are like that. Like, she has this vast network of people that she's met and knows, and that she can call on for help, and that'll take messages for her and stuff. So, I mean, I think it's a little more than that. I think that she has a quality that endears people to her, and maybe that's just, maybe I'm reading too much into it, just that she's kind, gentle, and has ability to draw people to her through that was really more how I saw her. And yes, she's obviously trying to solve a murder, and the murder of her mother. But yeah, I mean, I got the feeling that she was a genuinely good-hearted person.
Yeah.
And that maybe that's where the oracle ability comes from.
Yeah, there's a kernel of some good quality in her that she focuses on and grows to the point where she becomes an oracle. It's a little less specific, though, I'd say. I hope you would agree with me about that. Sure. Than with the Thistleman, where it's like, oh, if this guy's a racist, he hates people. Eventually, he becomes a literal monster.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just hoping for a little more than bad people become nasty, ugly people, and good people become the force that fight. Like, I don't know. I guess I was hoping for more than that. That was my major letdown in this book, the one issue I had with it. I do want to say what I said during the regular review was, and I didn't realize this, is that she goes and she's going to find Alice by going to scenes where there is trouble. And not once does she ever go to a scene where there's trouble.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm on the same page with you about that, because my understanding of her going on the road was just that she saw Alice in so many places that being on the road was her way of trying to. I didn't get that she was trying to go to specific places, just that she was out there looking.
And that's quite possible. Maybe I invented that. I'm not willing to reread the book. But no, my thought was that if she keeps seeing Alice at, sites of fires and car crashes, that she's got transportation and she could travel all over the country and kind of try to make it to those places. But then never once is anywhere more chaotic than like a Walmart parking lot. You know what I mean?
Well, fair enough. But also, it seems like early on, the whole Thistleman thing happens. And so, like,
oh, yeah, I see that would turn her off from. Yeah.
Change her approach to shit, too, maybe.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, I think this delivered. I'm saying this in spoiler talk, so I want to mention, like, it really delivered on some really good things that I couldn't talk about in the review. So I'm going to go back to the synopsis. So we have this great mystery, right? Your missing wife, presumed dead, shows up on some TV newscasts in the background. So you go on the search with no idea where you're going. That's wonderful stuff, right? You've got in the synopsis, this line right here: stumbles on an otherworldly conflict being waged in the quiet corners of our nation's highway system. That's amazing stuff. And that's what happens here is that nobody, like, there's a great delivery where people know something is wrong, but nobody wants to really look at it. Yeah. So, there's a town and everybody knows who the Thistle Man is in that town and nobody will talk about him. And the second one character does talk, or one peripheral character or story does start talking about him to Keisha, like he shows up. He's like, hey man, what's going on? The guy's like, oh, nothing. Wasn't talking about you. That kind of that kind of thing. So, there's really great stuff in there. And then this turn, the whole time you're thinking Bay and Creek is against Thistle. And then, as you heard, Rob and I couldn't really decide on what the connection was, or at least come to some kind of conclusion together on it. But that they're somehow working together. It's really, really good stuff. That is really quality storytelling.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And really the shock of the whole, like you mentioned, the news aspect where like they're finally breaking the story and they have all this evidence and just doesn't fucking matter at all. Is great. And the nice thing about that was, like, at that moment it's like, well, they have to go on living. And that's kind of like the next challenge is just like understanding that everybody else has already given up. It's kind of fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
I agree.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a ton of great stuff in this book. Sorry about that final scene.
The fight, or
so you're a small group of Praxis. I guess this book talks about explain for the group Praxis, which has gone on a grassroots campaign to gather up people that and explain about the Thistlemen and Bay and Creek and how we have to fight them. Finally meets Bay and Creek's entire army and the army of Thistlemen out in the open range somewhere on a hill, and then the remainder of Praxis and the Oracles got to come in from the sides. It was very Braveheart.
So Braveheart.
Or 1,000 other stories that we've seen that end like that. Yeah. So not bad. A little cheesy, but not bad. I think we kind of saw Sylvia turning into an Oracle was a little predictable.
Yep.
And you knew other Oracles were going to show up because they even say like, oh, but Keisha didn't tell her the whole plan, so there's a plan, right? They mentioned that Jeff guy or whatever his name is not being there. And it's kind of very telegraphed on what's going to happen.
But still satisfying.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. Like I didn't even mind the cheese of that. Like I said, ultimately, because I can't say this in the wrap up, so I'll have to address that I have some displeasure in the reveal. I just thought with all the great things that he did, he could have come up with a better backstory for the Thistles and the Oracles. So that's kind of where I'm at.
And just so that anybody that's listening to this knows, in our conversation before we started recording, I asked what would have been better, and there wasn't really like neither of us could really have like arrive at what would have been a more satisfactory kind of explanation of the Thistle. And I wasn't disappointed by it, but of course I had to challenge Livius. Is like, well, what would you fucking write? And we don't know.
That's the point. I don't know. I don't know. Rob and I had a lengthy conversation where I'm not going to get into it. We talked about Swan Song. We talked about the Necronomicon and the supernatural characters that take place in the Lovecraftian stories and stuff. So, we did spend a little bit of time analyzing some other options. I don't know what would have been better. I was just hoping for a little more.
To me, I guess this is a thought I just had now. And this just could be how like fucking dark my own world is. But like, a thought that I just had, if the Oracles were just as ugly as the Thistle, would that have been better?
I don't know, because I didn't think of the Oracles being pretty, really. They're wearing hoodies. We don't really know what they look like.
But they're definitely not described to be like the vile, disgusting things that the Thistle were.
Yeah.
So like
the
if they were just
like oozing yellow pus out of their skin, and it was weird. Faces shifting around like they were wearing someone else's skin.
And the reason I ask that is because, like, I think that everybody's got their ugliness, inside them. So to depict someone as, like, aesthetically superior is kind of like a easy, like a cheap thing. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah, I mean, let's go. So I guess I'll flip that around. I would have thought it was weird if the Thistlemen were like super hot stacked blondes. Like, I don't know that would have made it any better. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just, yeah, I don't know. Again, I guess I write my own book, right? And then I have to be responsible for what I put in there. Until then, I just get to give opinions on others. Yeah, I mean, that's reality. I mean, that's, it is what it is. For some people, for you, is satisfying. For plenty of other people, I'm sure satisfying. I'm sure there's some people who kind of feel the same way if they get to that part of the book and kind of go, oh, this is what it is? Okay.
My prediction, Livius's book that he writes, a lot more fairies, but not like supernatural, like with wings and stuff, fairies are going to be in that book.
100% more non-winged fairies in my book.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. Thanks for listening to Spoiler Talk. We hope to do this again soon. Next week, here's the spoiler. If you listen to this, I mean, you probably would have heard it in the regular review. Next week, Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I imagine there'll be spoiler talk then. Until then, thank you for being a valued Patreon contributor, and keep reading.